Good afternoon. This is Harlem Network News, and I'm Terri Wisdom, and welcome. This is Harlem Network News. Harlem Network News is a new media platform. We started at the onset of COVID, and we are still here. News and information is important to our community. It's important that we tell our own stories and make sure that we're speaking truth to power, because often major media does not tell our stories, and when they do, they don't get it right. And really, since the onset of COVID, we have understood even more the impact of media. Is the media the message, or is the message the media? So we have a lot going on here in Harlem every day. You know, New York City, there's something going on in the country. These are indeed strange times. I want to just send up prayers to our honorable former council person, State Senator Bill Perkins. We are pre-recording, but his viewing is today at First Corinthians Baptist Church, as well as his homegoing tomorrow. He contributed a lot to our community. He was one of the only people standing for Obama from the beginning. So he always followed his own way and did a lot for Harlem. We want to pray for Brother Neely, who was chokehold and killed on the train, and our Reverend Al Sharpton, eulogize him. And certainly we want to pray for the two young boys, 11 and 13, that were found, they were missing, and then they were found drowned. You know, so there's just a lot going on in our community, and all eyes on our youth and everything else. I have today with us the Last Poets, members of the original Last Poets, in the person of Abiodun and in the person of Babatunde. But before we go any further, I'm going to have Babatunde open us with prayer, with really a focus for prayer for our youth and for our community, the elders to just guide us. And I also just heard across the wire that Tina Turner has become an ancestor. So lots of prayers, lots of prayers. Babatunde.
Mojuba afẹ́fẹ́ ikú, Mojuba afẹ́fẹ́ ikú, Mojuba afẹ́fẹ́ ikú, Mojuba afẹ́fẹ́ ikú. We give honor to the ones who left us, who departed. We pray that the people, that our folks, our children, will open their eyes and their ears to what's going on around them. We pray for the health of our community. We pray for the health of our leaders, mothers, fathers, to sustain us, and for our teachers. We pray for the children so that they can become strong trees in our community and blossom with fruit. And we want to give thanks to the Almighty Olodumare Ashe, God, Allah, Jesus Christ, whomever you call the universal being that brings us here, that gives us consciousness to open our eyes to the truth. Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe. Thank you. Thank you so much for that prayer. That is healing. And I'm so grateful for those of you who are just joining. This is Harlem Network News. I'm Terri Wisdom, and I'm here with the Last Poets, the original Last Poets, Abiodun, Babatunde, and I have known both of them pretty much since I was 17 years old. So it's quite a journey, and we are really celebrating and lifting up the 55th anniversary of the Last Poets, which no coincidence, they started on the birthday of our Malcolm X, May 19th. So Abiodun, please share who you are and whose you are.
My name is Abiodun Oyewole, and on May 19th, 1968, that was a momentous occasion because I was asked by David Nelson, who was known at that time as David Nelson. Since that time, he's become a Black Hebrew, and he's David Nelson now, and he's still with us. And he mentioned that we were having, we wanted to find a way to stop seeing the fragments of Black people and see us come together as a unified force. So David thought it was a good idea to bring a group together of men from three men in particular, different walks of life, to be an example for Black people to see how much we needed unification. He thought if we saw three poets, because poets, generally speaking, don't function in groups. Poets are very solo for the most part, and sometimes even reclusive. So after they killed Dr. King, I lost my mind. I really was affected by the killing of Dr. King, even though I could have never marched with Dr. King because my father had a rule: if somebody put their hands on you, break their hand. He didn't believe in turning the other cheek. But
All right.
And he thought that King was a little off center with turning the other cheek because my father was raised in Savannah, Georgia, and he knew how vicious those people were down there. But Dr. King, my mother revered him. Matter of fact, honestly, Terry, I believe my mother had me put my hand on the TV in 1963 when he did the speech, "I Have a Dream," like I was gonna get some of that spirit.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
And so when they killed Dr. King, I felt like they had really smacked us in the face, that it was a total insult. I felt like I had to retaliate. And to be honest, I wanted to get a gun and start shooting white people. I really wanted to do something vicious. But I called David and said, this idea of this group, I think we better put it into service right now, because if not, I'm gonna do something crazy. He said, listen, I'll put your name, my name, and this other guy who I met at Columbia. He met Garland Kane at Columbia University at a reading.
Okay, I love it.
He said, I'll put their names on the list to read poetry in honor of Malcolm X. I knew of Malcolm. I had read the autobiography, but I'd seen Malcolm sitting in the back seat of my parents' car, because every Sunday we would come into Harlem to go to church. The church I attended was Southern Baptist Church on 108th Street between Central Park and Manhattan Avenue, Central Park West and Manhattan Avenue.
Okay.
So going to my aunt's house on 142nd, on one particular Sunday, I saw this orange-looking man standing on the corner of 7th Avenue and 125th Street, and I didn't know who was Malcolm. All I know is that my aunt told my mother, that man is over there telling the truth, and they're going to kill that man. And I could not understand how he was going to get killed for telling the truth when I was going to get my butt whipped if I didn't tell the truth. It didn't make no sense.
I got you.
But the fact is that the group was started on his day. We were on stage. We had a little rehearsal as to what we were going to do at David's house. He lived across the street from Mount Morris Park. That's what the park was called then. Of course, the park has been renamed to Marcus Garvey Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a chance to meet Kane and David. We all decided that we were going to go up on stage. But I'm saying, if we're going to be a group, we got to look like and sound like a group. I thought maybe we could sing a song behind one of the poems that David had, but Kane couldn't hold a note if you handed it to him. David's voice was kind of weak. I was the only one that could really sing. But I'd seen at Howard University, I think that's your alma mater. Well,
I'm just a Howard mother and a grandmother. I'm all day Lincoln University.
Right. Well,
but it's all our schools.
In 1968, they were trying to get rid of the president they had. And I believe his name was Nesbitt. And they didn't like him. They had an effigy of him hanging from a tree. And the students were going around the tree chanting, "Are you ready, niggas? You got to be ready." I had never heard the word niggas on television before. And I was stunned by that chant. So I figured that maybe since David had a poem entitled, "Are You Ready, Black People?" Kane had a poem entitled, "Niggas Are Untogether People." And I had written a poem called, "What Is Your Thing, Brother?" So I figured if we could chant, "Are you ready, niggas?" and when we went on stage, that would affirm us as a group. So I told them to chant. They all agreed. They both agreed. And we started on stage. There was a brother named Hakeem. I don't know if you know him. And I think Papa knows him. He played drums. I think he had a dance company at the time. And they were on stage performing. and he was getting ready to leave the stage, and I told him to stay because I thought,
Brother Hassan, isn't it Brother Hassan?
no, it was Hakeem.
Hakeem.
Okay,
Yes.
Hakeem, okay.
Hakeem.
And so I told him to stay on the stage because I felt like having drums behind us would be a little extra lift. So he played behind us, and we did our poetry, and the people loved it. We had an impact from the very first time we ever performed together. And we also got a gig on that very first performance down at Loeb Center at NYU the following Friday.
Wow.
But we still did not have a name. Garland Kane made a statement. He said, we need to have a place in Harlem to endear ourselves to the people we're trying to reach. I thought it made a lot of sense. So we had a place, and it was called the East Wing. It was between 5th and Madison Avenue. It was an L-shaped loft, and we had workshops there. We had productions that we produced ourselves. Mary Baraka came through and did this play, Black Mass, and a bunch of stuff. Dawn and Albert Eiler, Pharoah Sanders and Leon Thomas. I mean, Milford Graves and Don Pullins. Some people know these names and some people don't. But the fact
Right, and these days, if you don't know, all you have to do is Google and understand that this movement all came from young people. It was the youth that rose up, which is a very significant thing.
Right. So now the fact is that we were ready to do our thing, but we still didn't have a name. Garland Kane wanted to name us the East Poets. I disagree because it sounds like the East Side Kids to me. It sounds corny. But I understand he was coming from that our philosophy is coming from the East. It's not coming from the West. So we named our place the East Wing. And that made sense. And then David went about trying to find a name. David read poems by Sterling Brown, Strongmen, People and Coming. He read Margaret Walker's My People. He read a poem by Glenn Brooks. I can't remember all the poems he read to try to find our name. But the poem that he ran across was written by a South African brother named Kelpetsi Kokosili. Nobody could say his name right, so he was affectionately called Little Willie. Everybody called him Little Willie. And he was a poet. And there's a book that people, I think it can be gotten now, I'm not sure, but it's an anthology, the best anthology talking about the work of the 60s. It was done by Larry Neal and Leroy Jones, who of course we know Mary Baraka. And the name is called Black Fire, a fantastic book. And on page 237, I believe, is a poem by Kokosili entitled Towards a Walk in the Sun. That was the poem that gave us our name. Because what Kokosili does is he describes how horrible it was to live in South Africa under the apartheid regime. Apartheid really was an oppressive system for natives of that particular country. And you could feel the oppression and you could feel the hatred coming out of the poet's mind when he wrote that. And towards the end, he changes the font to bold letters. And he says, this wind you hear is the birth of memory. When the moment hatches in time's womb, there will be no art taught. The only poem you will hear will be the spear point, pivoted into the punctured marrow of the villain and the timeless native sun, dancing like crazy to retrieve rhythms of desire, fading into memory. And David Nelson added, therefore, we are the last poets of the world. So now we had a creed, we had our name, and the last poets is definitive. I just came from a studio in Queens, and the brother who was the engineer said to me, why do you guys call yourselves the last poets? And I broke it down to him like I'm telling you, but I told him very simple. I said, we weren't saying there were no poets to follow us. We were simply saying that this is your last chance to get it together before the revolution came. Because we were looking forward to a change in the way we were living. And we were looking forward to a complete revolution. And this is like the final call. So that's where the last poet's name came. And that was the beginning of a journey that's lasted for 55 years.
Right. And life, I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. Thank you for sharing that, Abiodun. Very powerful and encouraging and inspiring because we need that change now. And we know life is not a journey, it's a destination. Yes. Or not a destination, it's a journey. Let me reverse that. And, you know, it's just interesting because a lot of this movement came out of the 60s, the 70s, I know that when I first met you, Abiodun, I was at my alma mater, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And shout out to Lincoln, my class of 1973, 2 weeks ago, we really just celebrated our 50th reunion. We are the emeritus class. We led the graduation in. It was powerful, but it also made us know that we were special, we were unique, and we still are. Gil Scott-Heron started his band out there with Brian Jackson. Two of the members that were in the original band, Ma Brown, Jackie Brown, who was in my class, Ellen DeLeston, they were there at the reunion. Brian wasn't there, but it's interesting because us going back there, we know we were significant. We know we were unique. A lot came out of there. I mean, my freshman year, we had to leave the campus because they were burning crosses on the campus out there in Oxford, PA. And that was because we had done an all-night vigil instead of walking to Oxford, PA, because that was the Kent State, the student was killed.
Right.
Jackson State, another student was killed. So it was a lot. And, it's so interesting, June, when you told that story that after performing at Lincoln and we all went up to Gil, at that time we called him Spider-Man, but we were all up at his room and he said to you, which I didn't know, how serendipitous, like, hey man, I'm thinking about starting a band. And you said, well, go ahead. So it's just interesting how
Gil actually said he wanted to start a group just like ours. And I told Bill, I said, we want last poets all over the world, brother, go for it. And he was a likable brother. He was very congenial and he was very sharp. And I remember him so well. And I was happy to just know him. And then we became friends. And matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I had his daughter stay here, Gia, because she was here to perform at the African Street Festival. And Bilal had asked me if I had space for her to be here. I said, for Gil's daughter, are you kidding? Yes, I got space.
Right. Yeah.
And she knew all her father's work. And like I tell her again, as I also spoke to Brenda Sykes on the phone, I said, listen, Gil will last forever because of the work. That's the only way any of us are going to live forever. We have to do work. If you have not done any work, you might be forgotten before you leave. If you work, your work will last forever. It makes you immortal. Gil will be immortal, just like Malcolm, just like Martin. They will never die because of the work that they left behind.
Absolutely. I mean, not a day goes by. I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. But there's like on Google, there's like Gil Scott-Heron Radio. And I hear his stuff all the time. And in fact, The Last Poets gets meshed in there too, always. But he has a song called No Knock. You know what I'm saying? And how long ago was that? So it just shows you, how things are remaining the same and how prophetic some of these people were. And I believe Gia was out at Lincoln. I think it was like April 20th of March. She was performing out there. So let the circle be unbroken. Now, Bob Tunde, jump in and just tell us what your Last Poets experience is. How did you come to the Last Poets, and what's that journey been for you, bringing us to this 55 celebration?
It started with me with the album, actually. And I think we were kids then. I know we were kids. We were 12 or something, around the age. And I think my brother or my mom brought the album to the house. She was part of the Black Arts Movement, Blackfrica, before it became Harlem Week.
All right.
So she's one of the creators of that. That before it become what it is today. As it evolved, and so that was my first experience. Like that, listening to the album and listening to the poetry and listening to the drumming, and the combination of the two was very enchanting. Plus, it was a time of awareness, Black awareness. So we were all about it's like, we had to move to the South during the riots because they were afraid that something was going to happen in New York,
Mm.
and all that type of trauma that you got to deal with, that you're thinking about. And so that always be in your head in terms of, the revolution and the afros and the dashikis,
Mhm.
the whole lifestyle of of the movement at the time. So there was just more than just it was a whole life, it was a whole reality. I was trying to get an afro so bad, but that was I tried. I really was trying hard.
Uh-huh.
I wanted a big afro like everybody else. I won't tell you how my grandmother would try to make that happen. I'm not going to explain that right now, but it was quite an ordeal. But we went through it. So, like, come on, grandma, get the hair fried up. All right. So now you
Yeah.
know. So, in any event, we moved, for me, the culture, I think I got exposed to Olatunji, and it's just amazing because, a lot of the stuff that I've been traveling is my mother's path in a lot of ways, because
Mm.
she was a dancer. She wanted to dance. She
Wow.
didn't dance professionally, but she wanted to be into the dancing and the African dance movement.
Mm.
She
Okay.
probably went to art the dancing in Harlem. I didn't know nothing about that.
Wow. Wow.
She probably was dealing. I know she was with Larock Bay at
Okay.
the time, and there was a gentleman that taught with Larock. I can't think of his name right this moment. It may come to me in a second, but he was
Okay.
a close friend to Larock, and he had his own
Uh-huh.
company.
Okay.
So I never went to the dance class to see the drumming, and like I was sitting there, but we did go to the World's Fair. And I think that this, and like I said before, when I was probably in the womb, that's probably was hearing all those drums, and it has to be, because otherwise there was not a thing that was happening in the house per se. So it just became a thing. And we had a lot of support in our community about, being, finding ourselves, redefining ourselves, from
Mhm.
Afro Americans to Black, which was, I think at the time, I think that was the transition from Afro American to Black American,
Mhm.
or from Negro to Afro American, So it was that, I think that's what we was going through that transition. And listening to the last poets, that was very inspirational in terms of it was a teaching thing. You were listening and you were learning about, how we are scared of changes, and how we don't want to, and how we bullshit each other. And I think Omar's Niggas Are Scared Revolution really caps that off. When the revolution comes, we were like, all this was embedded. It was like, again, 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 again,
Yeah.
again. 90 cents, sunlight ends, and black comes back to blend again. With the death of the sun, night and blackness become one. Now, that
Mm.
particular poem was Jalal, Alafia Pundim at the time. And
Mm.
the poetry was like, as you can see, it's still is in my head. It
Yes,
was so much
absolutely.
in my head that I decided to write it down and hand it in as a poem. And the teacher said, "Oh my God, look at this poem! I didn't know you could write like that." I was like, so I had to run away real quick. But it was out of love, There wasn't like I was
Mm.
trying to steal his
Mhm.
stuff, but it was like, this is the first time I'm even thinking about doing, writing poetry and stuff. So
Mhm.
it was the beginning actually of that, of trying to express my blackness,
Mhm.
trying to define it. So that was, and then the drumming. My uncle had a drum, a conga, in my father's house, and I would like, I wanted to learn how to play it. The tone of the drum, just to hear the tones in the park, it captivated me. So I tried to get him to teach me, but he didn't know how to. He didn't know. It was like having the drum wasn't so much how to play it. It was like a artifact.
Right. Absolutely.
So like
Absolutely.
a lot of people have djembes in their house. Well, I have a djembe, but they don't play it. They just have it there as, I wouldn't say decoration. I would call
Mhm.
it an artifact,
Artifact.
you know,
Artifact is a good one.
a
Thank
part of the
you.
shrine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have my nephew with me, so I had to.
That's okay.
But
It's a
anyway,
village, it's a
no, he's
family.
good. He's cool. So that was it began. Well, from the World's Fair, that was the first step, and then I started to have I wanted to play the drum, and and started my band. I was starting a band. We even got a gig. We decided we're gonna do this thing. I never took formal lessons, so I'm just looking at from just feeling it and trying to. And it was so funny because listening to Elijah, I was trying to figure out how he come up with these different beats, and I couldn't. I was trying to. I couldn't. I never saw it being done, so I was trying
Mhm.
to imagine it, and it was
Mhm.
like one of those things until one day I got to see it being done. And so we had a band called Basic Black, and we were going.
Mhm.
We were. I think our first gig was at Black Africa, one of their fundraising events,
Okay.
and we were doing our thing then, and I really didn't have formal training at the time. So at that moment, I just said, well, I think my band fired me. So they because another cat came in, he knew how to chop. I'm sitting there like hurt. I said, it's my band. I getting fired from my own group. And they were all in tears, man. But he don't play. He don't play. So life went on, and I got with Episcopalian priests because there was a at Trinity Church. There was a youth center there.
Mhm.
So we go there on Sunday. That was our way of escaping and getting out of the house. My mother had
Okay.
everything lockdown.
Church,
Oh,
church,
Mom, we're
church.
going to church. Oh, okay, that's okay. I mean, 'cause we go
Uh-huh.
outside to play, but we can go to
Right,
church.
right,
Now, to get to
right.
the church, I had to go up the hill and all that stuff. I mean, it's like I'm just outside anyway. But and what we do when
Okay.
we get to the church, I mean, we weren't having prayer meeting. We were just sitting there, just kids hanging out,
Mhm.
maybe
That's
sitting in the
okay.
back in the cemetery, maybe smoking something, with all that kind of stuff. So we were doing
Mhm.
all the things kids do, we weren't just,
Mhm.
but it was a
Mhm.
place for us to gather. And that it was called EY's Young Christian or Youth Organization. So we were
Okay.
it was Father Gordon was was the pastor there, the priest there that facilitated that for us. He
Mhm.
left on, and the organization continued for some time. And I bring that up because I met Danny Barjanos, who was a drummer, who came and did a demonstration. So I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that was that. Then the light went
I
on,
get it.
and I got to meet Danny, and one of the priests that was there said to me, well, they're doing a drum class over at Dance Theater Harlem. I said, what? Okay. So I went
Mhm.
over to Dance Theater Harlem, and I signed up at the time, which I didn't know then, but now Arthur Mitchell has just started the dance company. He just
Mhm.
moved away from St. James Church, which
Mm.
was where Harlem School of the Arts started.
Wow.
So
Right
he
next
was
door.
modeling dance theater at the time to be similar to with a professional dance company as another annex to Harlem School of the Arts. Not like an annex, but it's like the same model. So
Mhm.
he had art. He didn't have art. He had dance, music and dance.
Mhm.
So, and he had drums. So you never at the time you never get the impression that he was really into the drumming because we were in the basement. But he kept the drums.
Mhm.
And we were there. And Pablo Landrum is who's my first instructor. I met him, and that's where I met a few guys there. And some of my buddies from that time we're all professional drummers and et cetera, et cetera. But
Wow.
that's where it started.
Mhm.
Yeah, we started.
What a powerful Harlem story. And
Oh, it's a Harlem story for sure
one of
because
the
it goes from
things I
Harlem School of
love,
the Arts to Harlem Dancing in Harlem, back
yeah.
to Harlem School of the Arts, as we will find out later.
Mhm.
And with Arthur Mitch with Pablo, his name, I said, well, who's your teacher? Pablo Landry. Oh, I met his cousins. I met everybody. I met, and they said, well, let me show you this beat. Let me show you that beat. Let me show you this beat.
Mm.
And then through there, so then here coming to what we was coming to,
Mhm.
I met Abiodun because he came in to dance in Harlem. We had so good. We really had a good. We had a room, like a little loft space.
Mhm.
The whole apartment was ours for across the street. They kept us across the street, and we were fine. Like,
Okay.
we make all the noise we could make,
Okay.
and we were getting stipends and stuff. It was kind of like, it was really a blessing, a major blessing.
Absolutely.
And Mitch and Abiodun walks in. I said, "Now look, I'm looking like the last poet. He's like, yeah. But I'm not here for that. I'm here, teach my son. I want you to teach him some drumming." That's how I met Oba.
Mm.
So Oba was a little guy,
Okay.
and then that's how our relationship started with and informally with the last poet. But here I am looking at the album, and it's like that's like a relic, you know what I mean, like on the altar. And
Wow.
here he comes in, and wow, okay, so that's how we started. And to make a long story short, well, it's very long, but we did some projects together with Tyrone Jefferson, and we did a lot of things together, and we developed our relationship. Oh, that's me.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. No worries. Thank you.
So that's where it started, and then in time I met Kenyatta Abdul Rahman, who's a friend of mine also. He's a percussionist. He played with Studio Wiz, with Warren Smith, and we're getting into the jazz scene and things like that. And he said, "Man, you want to play with the last poet?" At that time, that was with Umar, Jalal, Suleiman, Kenyatte. And
Okay.
I think Radu was on bass. I believe Radu was on bass. So and we went to Toronto and we performed and etc. And I did some recordings with them with Bill Laswell back in those days.
Okay.
So then the full circle. Then that's where I met Umar. And we talked and stuff, and I said, "Man, it'd be great to have everybody together." I'm thinking about Abiodun. I'm saying we should have the whole thing, and that's where it began. That's where Umar and we had discussion, and he went and talked with Abiodun, and so they said, "Look, June could tell you what happened from there."
Okay. All right. Well, this is Harlem Network News, and I am so honored and grateful. One of the reasons I love doing Harlem Network News is because even when I interview people that I know, I always find out something new. And that's the powerful, powerful, powerful thing, And so here we are. That's the story. And it shows how everything was connected. But I love what you were saying, Babatunde, because we were all just hungry, for our Blackness. And, I grew up in Queens, and you just don't know what you're in, because how our parents, or at least I went to dance class. My mother was from Harlem, and she was a tap dancing and doing all that kind of stuff. So I went to dance class from the time I was 4 years old. And ironically, my dance teacher was LaRock Bay was my, at that time they called it interpretive teacher. So how powerful is that? But at four, I mean, I took dance till I was 8 or 9, but that was my interpretive teacher in Queens at Gloria Jackson Dances.
Right.
So what's that?
The funny thing, my dad was a close friend to Dr. Ben.
Okay.
They were both architects. And
wow.
then he would come to the house and they would have the discussions about, the Egyptians, all this stuff was going on. But I was too young to know what was going on until I got older. And I'm saying, "Yo, Pop, you knew Dr. You was that close? Like, oh yeah, I know your dad. I remember you was just a little baby, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah, it's,
and everybody's, I'm like, you could let me know that you knew him, when we got older. I'm genuflecting like this, and he's looking at me like, no, I know you was a kid.
It's it's all a process, because even with that, you know, I've lived my whole adult life in Harlem, different places, brownstones, entrepreneurships, but where I am right now is in an apartment that Dr. Ben lived in for 40 years. And it's interesting because when I came in, there was a lot of light and there was this and there was that. And I was, you know, just kind of taking it all in. And then when I actually moved in, one of my neighbors said, you know, you're moving into a really like special and sacred space. And then she told me, she was like, Dr. Ben lived there for 40 years. But I already knew, I didn't know who lived there, but I knew it was a lot of like powerful energy. So that's why I know that I am definitely have to continue to do the work and keep the legacy going in whatever way I can. So Dune, we're going to come back to you and you can share.
I want to add on finish what Babatunde was saying, because we considered Elijah, our first conga player, to be the heartbeat of the group, because he kept the rhythm. And like Baba said, every single poem he had a different rhythm for. He never repeated the same rhythm for any of the poetry, which meant that he understood the language. He knew how to interpret what we were saying on the congas. And when Umar came to me over 30 years ago now and said, we got to take our crown back, I'm teaching at Columbia. I'm living my life. I got a jazz group. I'm doing music. I don't need to be on that last horse no more. I did that already. And Umar is saying we got to take our crown back because these kids are talking. They don't know what they're doing, and we got to put some more meaning in words. And I said, well, I've been seeing you in 20 years. What are you doing? And he started sharing with me some of his poems. He had a poem called 42nd Street, which was off the chain. He had another one called Bum Rush. I mean, he had been writing. And Umar had not written any long poems until I got him to write Niggas Are Scared of Revolution. After he wrote that, every single poem he's ever written is like an epic. He don't write short poems no more, because all his stuff was real short. So he said, well, we need to get back on the road. We need to get back to being the last poets. And I'm saying, well, what are you talking about? So I thought about it. Then I said, well, we got to get a conga player. So I figured that, because Umar and I have had a conflicting relationship, and I figured that was going to be a big argument. What kind of, who's going to be the conga player? It was not an argument, Terry. He had one person in mind. And I had the same person that he had in mind. And that was Donald Babatunde Eaton. I mean, and we both had him on mind because he could play and we could feel him. And if there was anybody who could actually step in from where Elijah was, Babatunde could do that. And when he plays the rhythm behind us, it's the same basic thing. He doesn't play the same rhythm behind any of our poetry. If you hear This Is Madness and you hear Niggas Scared of Revolution and you're going to hear different rhythms. Baba's got that kind of skill. And another thing too, it's a pleasure to travel with the big man in another country, because we would hang out together and we'd walk around. And we had a day when we were in Portugal, and I know Baba remembers, we were going to go to the castle where the Tigris and the Euphrates River meet, and there was a trolley. We were on a trolley. Remember that, Baba?
Yep. Trolley, because the car was blocking the track.
A Mercedes was on the trolley tracks, and the people were sitting on the trolley like it was okay. Nobody was upset. Baba and I said, you know what? We're not Portuguese. We could get off this. So we went and bought some ice cream, and we started to walk to the castle. Man, the looks on the face of those folks in that trolley could have killed the stars. They hated us, but we were not following their tradition. They would sit there on the trolley until the guy came and moved his car, and God knows when that was going to be. I don't know, but we took it upon ourselves to walk. Another thing,
got proactive.
And we were in Trieste, Italy, and we decided we were going to go to the biggest cave ever. I mean, it's the biggest cave in Europe, and you walk 1,000 feet down.
Wow!
But there's no elevator. You got to walk 1,000 feet up.
You know, I thought there was. I saw these two tubes, so I just imagined those are elevators. So I was like,
okay.
Hey, good thing I'm a little claustrophobic. So I said, what did I get myself into? Oh,
We we have been.
So-
What is that? Oh, I got to walk through this thing. I said, "Oh boy!" We went in, but once you get in, it kind of opens up. So it wasn't like you had to duck down at first. Then it got open.
Matter of fact, Baba and I were in a little town called Imola, and that's also in Italy. And we were just walking because we wouldn't even call each other. We just meet each other in the lobby, like we knew we was time to take a walk. And
okay.
that's the best way to see the place where you are. And so we're taking a walk. I want to get some fruit, and to be in my room to have some fruit on hand. And I touched the fruit, and the lady said, "No, you can't do that. You can't touch the fruit. Only the proprietor can touch the fruit." I mean, that's a rule they have over there. So I got some fruit, and we're on our way back to the hotel. And I noticed this both of us saw this picture of somebody, and that the older people, because they ride bikes in Europe, and the people had flowers in the basket of their bikes, and they were taking the flowers and putting the flowers in front of this picture. So Baba and I decided that we need to walk down there and see who's being revered, because
absolutely.
The closer we got, and I know Baba remembers this, the closer we got, the darker the picture looked. I said, this can't be a black man. This is insane. We're in Imola, Italy. The guy on the picture had a beautiful gold frame around it. And who was it? Biggie Smalls.
Wow.
People in Italy were putting flowers around his picture. And I'm trying to figure out what is going on. I remember the promoter for that gig the guy's name was Mauricio. So I said, Mauricio, why are people celebrating Biggie Smalls? He's just gotten killed. I said, why are they celebrating Biggie Smalls? And so Mauricio said, Mafioso. I said, Biggie was Mafia? The name of Biggie's label was Junior Mafia.
Junior Mafia, got it.
And the Mafia happened to be the good guys for the people in Italy. They're only gangsters to the cops.
Okay.
But those are some of the experiences that we've had. In traveling around the world with Baba Tune for the last 30-some years, it's been a joy. We have had some experiences that if we were to do a major movie about our experiences.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. Where's the book? Where's the movie? Because
from South Africa to Morocco, I mean all over the place. We did a Lollapalooza tour, 17 cities here in this country. I mean, we've had some experiences and a half, and some ups and downs, but basically we have maintained our friendship, and it's been a joy. And what we have brought to people, what we have learned about ourselves and learned about the whole movement of poetry. People always want to give us credit for laying the foundation for hip hop. But if you have traveled like we have traveled, you find that every single country, every on the planet has a poetry group. The poetry has become the voice of young people on the entire planet. And I will definitely take credit for being one of the people that helped set that off.
Okay, well, that is a blessing. I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News, and this is quite a robust conversation. And it's what we want people to know and understand. Of course, especially in those 60s and, late 60s, 70s, I was definitely in poetry as well. And, Gil would encourage me and tell me, write this. And I read a lot of his books while they were in a notebook, so it was just a very powerful time. But I get back to our youth. Where are we? I want to speak just briefly about this, and then we will just say what's happening with the last poets now. What kinds of things are you doing, and how do you see going forward? But music has always impacted us. And where are we with the youth and the music now? And how do you see, because I'm very concerned, I know I spoke about this another time that we talked, I'm very concerned about the drill music, the impact, where a lot of the music is talking about killing, really defaming women, drugs. A lot of the people who are the drill artists are all locked up. But even though that's what they're talking about, this is something that the young people are emulating. And even those who are college students or lawyers, they're with that too. And I think it's because the beat as you said, from the drum, the beat is intoxicating. And
Yes.
they all say to you, it gets me all revved up.
Right.
So let's talk about that just a little bit. It could be Abiodun. What are your thoughts?
The BBC was over here about a couple of years ago. They interviewed me and asked me the same question. And I had to admit, my kids are into hip hop, of course, like everybody's child for the most part. But I said I have an issue with hip hop being very sloppy. I mean, it shows, wearing your pants hanging off your butt, not tying your sneakers, not being respectful to the elders walking down the street. I have a problem with that. I said, that's not who we are. I said, I even have a problem with the fact that the kids refer to themselves as, that's my dog, that's my dog. I mean, we had a whole different, we deal with a different animal. Back in our day, it was, that's a bad cat on them drums. That's a bad cat playing the piano.
All right.
And there's a difference between a dog and a cat. Cats are smart. Cats, you don't have to walk no cat. The cat knows how to go to the litter box and do his business. Cats clean themselves. They lick themselves clean. And the cat was revered by ancient Egyptians. And it's no mystery. The biggest statue on the planet has got the face of a pharaoh and the body of a cat, a big lion. And we pulling ourselves away from some of the artifacts that we need to attend to and because see, unfortunately, the world is divided into two tribes, the God tribe and the dog tribe. And there's a difference in those symbols. God and dog have the same symbols. They're just inverted. And the deal is that this character has gotten a lot of our children because of the dollar bill to go with the dog tribe. And even you're like, yo, that's my dog, yo, dog. I mean, all of that stuff, it becomes, and it is silly. And like you said, the beats are replicas of our heart. And yes, that's intoxicating. And you can hear a beat, and you don't have to be in a hip hop. And the beat can take you on a trip, and so forth. I am just proud of the fact that we as Last Poets have continued to keep it organic. And yes, what are we doing now? Baba and I were 3 months ago in Brazil and performed fantastically well to the point where they want us back. I mean, we had 2 sold out shows and put on a beautiful show for the people. They enjoyed it very much. And it was just a congas. And also, I'm in the moment, at this moment, I'm looking at the second tier of Last Poets. So Sharif Simmons is the new Last Poet. Aja Monet is a sister that's going to be in the group because it's time for a sister to be a Last Poet.
Okay, I love it.
And a brother named Tango, who is also a bad brother, about 6'9", but his poetry is fierce.
All right.
Because I'm not going to be here forever. Umar has already had some health challenges as well. He had a stroke. He's recuperating, and he's also had some signs of dementia because he's been forgetting some of his work. But the fact is that the work should continue. It's beyond a group. It is an institution, and institutions should not die because the people that help create them, they leave. So we're trying to secure a place for the Last Poets to be here even after I'm gone. And Baba's younger, so he's gonna be here for a little longer, I'm sure.
Well,
Okay.
God, God's plan.
God's willing. But at the same time, Baba has also trained quite a number of folks how to play the drums. He's an excellent teacher. My son went to the University of Pennsylvania. We were there performing. I think that was when Baba even had the talking drum he was using as part of the repertoire. At the end of the show, the sisters run up on this by me. I'm coming up stage, and they say, "You're Obadeli's daddy?" I said, "Yes, I am." "Oh, well, he taught us how to do African dancing. Taught us how to play drums." I said, "No, you got the wrong." I said, "You have the wrong Obadeli. My son's a pre-law student at University of Pennsylvania." And then I'm forgetting that I brought Oba to meet Baba Tune. Whatever Baba Tune taught him, my son Oba remembers. He has not forgotten that stuff.
Right.
And he took that, and on his free time, organized some girls to do some African dancing and showed them how to play the drums. I mean, I'm impressed. So the beat goes on, the culture will You see, that's what the whole revolution's about, as we mentioned before.
Absolutely. And
And
I
I'm writing, and I'm formulating a book of poetry.
Yes, matter of fact,
So it's still in the editing stages right now.
okay, I
But
love
it's going
it.
to come out shortly.
Yeah, I've got it. Baba has been writing some major poetry.
Mm.
I had a chance to read his manuscript.
This is my stuff now. I'm not taking from
Okay,
somebody else's.
okay.
I know it's not from anybody, it's from his head. And I sent it to my publisher, and she is planning to publish it because, and she knows how good it is. And the name of the book is Drum Speaks, so be on the lookout for that.
Okay.
I'd say I give it about a year's time because my publisher happens to be bogged down right now, but
Mm.
she has definitely committed herself to publishing this piece.
Okay. I love it. And it's a circle because really I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News, and we're winding down. But I really met Babatunde at Harlem School of the Arts, where he was a drum teacher, and Miss Rhymes, the African dance teacher. My daughter Maya was in Miss Rhymes' class. And that's really where I met and knew Babatunde. My son, Ali Wisdom, who, Columbo the Shining Star, who Dune nurtured, and, he transitioned, November 5th, 2021. But my son went to Harlem School of the Arts as well. And I think Ali may have taken a little bit of drumming, but really he was a master virtuoso violinist in the major orchestra with Mr. Darling. That's who he was. And he was an incredible violinist. But, one thing at Harlem School of the Arts, both my children, because if you went there for music, you had to take theory and sight singing and all of this. So really, Ali and Maya, even in their music ventures, they can read and write music. And that was a Harlem School of the Arts situation. And Maya could have been in, Christy Copeland in the ballet thing, but she didn't love it enough.
What I'm saying, Terry? You're talking about the hub of our lives. They deliberately they've taken art out of the public schools, and they know what they were doing when they did that, because Black people learn everything through the arts.
Yes, absolutely.
Math, science, and once they took the art. Remember Music and Art High School up there where?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes. All of my Lincoln friends, Ellen, all of them went to music and art. Many major people, Luther Vandross, Abdel, of Forces of Nature, he went there too. We have the big Dance Africa coming up. There are many people who came out of music and art.
Yep.
So that's real talk.
Oh yeah, and when they took it out to schools, they killed a very vital part of us because we learn much better. If you take the arts out and you're just teaching math or science, it becomes very boring and very bland. But you can teach math and science through the arts, and we will appreciate it even much more.
Absolutely, because how much do you have to know to read and write music?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? How much do you have to know? And it's an innate and an organic thing.
Absolutely.
So,
it's also the hypnoticness of music that travels, like the griot and the jelly. Well, really the jelly, because the griot is a French term, but the jelly would use the balafon or the kora to create a melody to hypnotize as he tells a story. So that helps them to remember the story and helps the people who are listening to remember the story. So that's the drum or the instrument or any instrument will create a hypnotic wave, so to speak. And the problem with that, well, not the problem with it now is that the same wave is being created for derogatory guttural stuff. So now we have gotten into a point now where that same technology is used against us, and we're not paying attention. So we're not paying attention to what's being told. Now, for me, in my earlier days, not just from the religion point of view, but also from a mind science point of view, I knew that the subconscious mind, how I became aware of how it works, and religion being a map through this um, science. So now, knowing that if I've done it I've done the things. I mean, I could go on and on how I experimented with my own life with this
Right.
technology
Yes.
and
Mhm.
seeing it manifest. So I'm thinking to myself, people are not really paying attention how they are manifesting their thoughts and how their thoughts is creating havoc for them. And people are having hells, having they don't have to. If you could change you may not change the environment, but you can change your thought or how you react to the environment. And
Mhm.
that's if once we can get that back on track, I
Mhm.
think the community will benefit from that. Because you have to benefit personally. How does it personally change your life? So, people have blind faith. I said my faith is very visible, very very visible. I could throw 4 coins and say, "Well, I'm not going there," and find out. Oh, you know what happened last night, man? I was going. Man, it was a fight. It was this and that. I said, "Yep." See,
Right.
that's why I said I didn't. My technology showed me not to go there. So
Mhm.
that's always been with us, and
Mhm.
but that science is lost for a lot of us.
Yeah. It's
So
very, very important.
people are
Very
lost into
important.
blind faith, or don't have faith at all, or have
Mhm.
negative faith.
Yeah,
Very
we are
pessimistic.
at war right now.
It's
And I'm Terry Wisdom.
spiritual
This
war.
is
Yeah.
Harlem Network News. We are at war. We are fighting for the lives of our community. We're fighting for the lives of our children. And I would just have to say I'm in no ways tired.
You know,
We have to roll up our sleeves and not give up and understand that there are powers and that music does have power, it does have energy. And like you said, it is used for the good, it's coming from us, but there are other people who are marionetting what's happening and putting it on our kids.
You know what? It's funny that you said that we're fighting for our spiritual. Like, what is the line that President Biden uses? I'm fighting for the soul of America.
Okay.
And you know what? He's absolutely correct. We know that he's not the person that can carry that fight through because it's not in his makeup. He is not a member of the soul crew, but he
Mhm.
but he recognizes that a soul must be attended to. At least his recognition of that. That's one reason why we are sisters to make sure that he got in office because he was speaking a language that is kin to our existence. We have they call our food soul food. They call our music soul music because they left us with nothing but our souls. So and we blew it up to the point where now all they want to do is merge themselves into our being so they can get some soul too. So they got integrations going off the chain. You can't see a commercial on television without seeing black and white.
Right. Yeah.
And that's all an effort for them to try to nurture something that they've never nurtured before, and that is their souls. They discounted their souls. They're so mental and they're so anal until they don't recognize if you get your soul right, the rest of you will follow.
Absolutely. Well, Ashe, thank you for that. I'm so grateful to have you all here, to have you speak, for our vibration to go out into the community, and for people to hear these kinds of words and know that there are institutions like the last poets that have gone the distance, 55 years, and there's a plan for it to continue as an institution building, just like our HBCUs, is critical. We've got to invest in our institution building. And, that's where we are. That's where we have to stay. And, we may be looked at differently, especially because the young people now, there's a lot of different influences, from media, but media, whether it's social media or whatever it is still the message and a developmental force. So we've got to look at that. We've got to take control of that. And we've got to stand on top of that. So that's why it's so critical what a last poets is.
Let me, like you said you wanted me to read the piece I wrote.
Yes,
55
yes,
years. And let me say,
absolutely.
before I go on, like just in what you're saying, one of my alumni buddies recently told me 12 graduates of Shaw University, which is a HSBCU school,
Mhm.
were white.
Okay,
We've never had that before. So you got white kids going to historical Black colleges,
wow.
and that is totally unheard of. I mean, groups of white kids.
There may be a few here and there, usually at the graduate level, medical school or something like that. But like you said, this is a phenomenon.
Undergrad at Shaw University.
Phenomenon.
So that they just like they're moving into the neighborhoods, they are moving into our schools as well. I have no problem with it as long as we are in charge. If you want to sit there and learn about African history and learn about our culture, no problem. Because we will be glad to show you. We even show you how to make sweet potato pie. No problem.
We have a lot to do. June is gonna close us out with the poem he's written for the 55 years, but I want people to really tune into Harlem Network News. You can reach us at harlemnetworknews.com, Harlem Network News, gmail.com, 646-261-5397. We need your support spiritually, mentally, financially, holistically, so we can keep going. And I encourage you, I always do my research. I did go to Facebook and your website, Dune, and the Last Poets, and there's a wealth of information and albums and things, books you can so make sure that you do that, because these are the things and the vibrations that are going to make a change. And I want to just also speak briefly about Felipe Luciano, who was one of the last poets who I also had the honor and pleasure of meeting when I was a counselor at the Project Double Discovery at Columbia. I was 18 years old, and some of what he said helped change my life too. I just remember him talking about, Puerto Ricans and, in his whole family, there was Blacks, there was light people, there was this. I mean, it was profound information. So I'm grateful to just have met all of these people, a Lincoln University, a Gil Scott-Heron, and Abiodun along the way, a Babatunde. These are things that help to anchor me, for who I am. And I thank you both for nurturing our youth. Babatunde is still teaching at Harlem School of the Arts. Abiodun still bringing in the young people, work with my son to do an album, which I now I got 2 lives. I got to make sure his stuff gets out because he's an ancestor, but he's guiding me. And, and for you having your Sundays still with the young people, that's powerful.
Well,
you're doing the work.
I want to thank you because you're taking a network in Harlem and you're bringing this to life, Terry. And you've constantly kept your hands on the plow. You haven't stopped. You're a serious Black mother who cares more than even about your personal children. You care about all the children of Harlem. And that's important because you got some people that sit home and talk and they may do some crocheting or needlepoint, but you get out and you do stuff and you're visible. And I appreciate what you're doing with the Harlem Network, and I'm very happy that I'm proud to have been a part of it today. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. So let's close us out. You're going to do the poem that is for the 55, and then maybe we will have Babatunde just close us out after that with a short prayer because we need it. Thank you.
This is written on May 19th, which is, of course, the great Haj Malik Shabazz, known as Malcolm X's birthday. 55 years ago today. 55 years ago, on Malcolm X's birthday, the last poets were born. A trio of poets who used poetry as a tool to tear down a slum life, to build a better life for Black people. 3 men in Harlem came together on this day using poetic verse that was bold like a punch in your face, that was funny, that was funky like how we dance, that was fiery like how we preach, to inspire and motivate Black people to embrace the beauty of themselves and leave the ugly behind, to shed the rags of a nigger and to wear the majestic robes of our African ancestors in our hearts, in our minds, and on our bodies. 55 years ago today, a trio of Black men made poetry a rallying cry for Black folks to come together, support each other, love each other, have faith in each other. The last poets became the members of the vanguard, word warriors like Amiri Baraka, Askia Mohammed Touré, and Sonia Sanchez, who laid the foundation for the last poets to stand on. 55 years of performances, albums, and activities inspired the birth of hip hop and millions of poets around the world to use poetry for self-expression, to inform and bring about change for all of humanity. I am proud to be a part of this legacy, along with David Nelson, Galen Kane, Felipe Luciano, Elijah Obabi, Umar bin Hassan, Jalal Mansur Nuruddin, Suleiman El Hadi, Don Babatunde Eaton. A new generation of last poets are being born to be a part of this legacy, which I hope will last for another 55 years.
Ashe. Woo. Woo! Yes, that's that talking drum. And this is a Harlem Network News Healing. Join us. Stay tuned.
Yo.
Ashe, Ashe, oh, I thank you. I love you. I'm lifted up, which is needed. And we are lifting up our community, and drumming and dancing and all of those lift the spirits. My son Ali was part of Baba Kahende's group with his son Sule Sekou. So that drumming is there, and it's a healing, and we have to continue that. This is a Harlem Network News Healing, and Ashe. Thank you, the last poets. We celebrate you.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Heal our community. Save our children. All right. Ashe, Ashe, Asheo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dupwe, Mo Dupwe.